Nigeria has about 200,000 kilometers of roads in its network. But despite the trillions of naira that has been spent on road maintenance and construction since 1999, the roads remain death traps. However, the present administration has promised to address the decadence on Nigerian roads. But how? Hello there, thank you for joining me on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuke. Now from Shagamu Ore to Benin, Onitsha to Owerri, Gombe to Port Harcourt, Abuja to Lokoja, Ibadan to Ilorin, among several others. I'm sure you have several stories to tell about the state of the roads. Now, the Minister of Works, architect Mike Onolememen, who is my guest this week, will be explaining what sort of steps are being taken to tackle the challenges and generally improve the road sector. But up ahead, the Federal Executive Council has approved the construction of roads in Benue, Bauchi and Niger states. Take a listen.
The Osegbudu-Oweto Road is part of the local Oweto Bridge alignment that connects the Federal Capital Territory through local in Nasarawa State to Oweto in Benue State. This particular road became necessary for Council to consider for award today because the ongoing local Oweto bridge construction over the River Benue has already reached 78% completion. And it is important that this road that will take traffic from the Oweto side of the bridge to Otukpo is completed before the completion of the bridge. The other project that was approved today is the construction of phase 3 of the Ningi Yadagungume Fuska Manta Road in Bauchi State. This road traverses through Bauchi, Plateau, and Kaduna State. It links the three states, traversing vast agricultural lands, and it would also help to improve the economy of the communities in the corridor. The third project is the contract for the dualization of the outstanding section of the Suleja-Mina Road in Niger State from kilometer 40 to kilometer 101 in Mina. This is an important arterial route since it links our arterial route A1 at Mokwa. Our arterial route A1 starts from Lagos through Ibadan, Ilorin, all the way to Kaduna, and is part of the Trans-Sahara Highway that goes all the way to North Africa, especially Algiers. It connects that particular road with our arterial route A2, part of which is the Lokoja, Abuja, Kaduna Expressway.
Now let's have some answers to some of those questions you probably have been asking for long. Joining me now is the Minister of Works, architect Mike Onolememen. He will take us through some of the government's efforts to address the poor state of the Nigerian roads. Architect Mike Onolememen, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's begin with the slashing of the ministry's budget for 2015. In other words, the zero allocation for capital projects, really. What do you think informed that decision?
Our capital allocation threshold, as a result of the dwindling revenue to government, was slashed from about 100 billion to about 12 billion finally. And what that means is that as a ministry, we had to really work hard to tap into other sources of revenue in funding our projects. And again, it's going to task our ability to effectively prioritize our project in the way that the national road network will still be in good shape throughout the country. So that is the challenge that is confronting us. And as a ministry, we are thinking out of the box in order to identify opportunities open to us by this new development. But there's no doubt that it's a tough time we are facing, and we can only hope that the income of the country will improve as we go deeper into the new year.
But did the ministry actually save 11 billion for the federal government? Because you once mentioned that you describing road project augmentation as one of the avenues where corruption, thrives.
Well, a lot of savings has been made as a result of our new project management template.
Was it about 11 billion?
That no longer allows, needless augmentation of road projects. The issue of 11 billion you are talking about was just one augmentation request that was made on only one contract, and for which, of course, I did not approve, because for me it didn't make sense, and we tried to open up the particular issue, and we now find out that contrary to what the engineer representative was requesting for, that there were more auspicious and more economic way to deal with the problem they that was confronting them on site. And when the technical committee that I set up went into that particular request, it was found out that what the engineer representative wanted was not the best for the government, it was not the best for the country, and as one with the approval responsibility, I withheld my approval and directed otherwise, and in so doing, I merely tapped into the contingency fund for that same project. I ended up not spending a dime. So on that project alone, we saved 11 billion. That is true. In other words, it's not as if it's money that you have spent. It's money that would have spent had that proposal been approved. And that was what we made in place. We used to have a number of such proposals and all that until 2011, where we said, wait a minute, the nation is spending so much money as a result of augmentation of projects, and we must put a stop to it. And in putting a stop to it, we had to devise a new project management template that now made it possible for us to pay only permanent works that have reached asphaltic binder level. In other words, at that level, you're able to protect the entire work you would have done, and there will be no recourse to augmentation. Because unknown to many, what usually causes augmentation, particularly augmentation as a result of washout, which was the most common kind of augmentation. And that particular augmentation, was fraught with a lot of corrupt practices. What happens is that a contract is awarded, in the past, not anymore, is awarded, and a contractor is mobilized, he goes to site. He piles up all kinds of earthwork, and he exhausts all the budgetary provision, and he moves out of sight. After the rains, most of the work is washed away. And maybe in a year or two, when perhaps he's able to get that particular contract appropriated for, he's back requesting for augmentation as a result of washout due to inclement weather. And government is forced to pay again, and he goes back to site and continue in that vicious cycle of earthwork and all that and augmentation. So that was why when we decided to stop augmentation requests as a result of washout, in fact, 99% of the stakeholders, particularly the contractors, they moved against it. They said they will not have it, particularly because, according to some of them, because of the nature of funding of project, they were not going to have it. So here we put our foot down because we had given our word, and Mr. President had approved it because truly it was a way of really making a lot of savings in the ministry. And eventually the policy prevailed, and since then the road sector has been better for it. We no longer have augmentation as a result of washout because every contractor now knows that they have to protect their work. Before they couldn't care less because the contract document made it possible for them to receive payments whether the works were adequately protected or not.
So that has been tackled?
That has been completely tackled.
Is this part of reasons why that really that stalled the the 230 billion, supposed to be released for critical road projects?
It's part of the reason, because contractors are no longer entitled to certificates for payment unless the work is done to that protected level where they now have the binder asphalt cost as the minimum. But some of them who have the capacity, they go all the way and do the wearing cost in addition to the binder cost. And after that, certificate is issued and they are paid. But because so many of them had complied and because there was default in the budgetary releases, we had to pile up that 230 billion. If our budgetary releases were in accordance with the appropriation, at the worst case scenario, based on the line budget, we would just be owed by 27 billion. But again, if you just oppose that with about 77 billion that was also not released to the ministry from the shopping budget, we would have had a surplus of 50 billion that we would have used to aggressively advance or ramp up construction activities on our ongoing project.
So how many projects will be affected by this cut?
What we have done, in terms of prioritization, because we do realize that because the situation we are in, nobody knows when it will come to an end, but we do realize that it's a transition phase. We have deliberately ensured that non-priority projects have no allocation to them, but the critical ongoing projects on major arterial roads in the country are also being sustained. And in terms of number, we still do have 90% of our critical road projects ongoing, because beyond the 12 billion that have been appropriated to us, or is being appropriated to under the 2015 budget, we also do have about 35 billion from the shopping budget. So that when you put the two together, we still have about 47 billion to play around with. So it is not true that it is zero allocation that has been given to work.
So in other words, if really you didn't have this cut, you would have had a lot of money in your coffers.
You need to look at our project portfolio holding. We have a total project portfolio holding of about 184 ongoing projects with a cumulative value of about 1.7 trillion naira. And thus far, we've completed about 62 of those projects, valued at well over 500 billion naira. Out of that, from 2011, when we came in July 2011 to date, over about 300 billion naira has been committed into road development projects. So the excess, which we are owing, which is 230 billion, or the shortfall, which we are owing the 230 billion, if we had had that, we would have made the figure of over 500 billion to pay contractors for work done thus far. So we would not have had any surplus. Well, I just used that to explain, figuratively, that if we have had that, we would have used that to ramp up construction activities on most of the other ongoing projects. Don't forget that our project portfolio holding is still about 1.7 trillion, and if you remove 500 billion from that, you will still have had 1.2 trillion to grapple with. But nevertheless, these projects, all of them have a different completion period, some of them spanning through 4 years, others 2 years, 3 years, depending on the peculiarity of the project. All
right, hold on with that thought. We're still with Architect Mike Onolememen. We'll come back and have more on what's happening in Nigerian road projects. Stay with us.